The rivalry between Caitlin Clark and Aja Wilson just took a wild turn, and fans are absolutely outraged. For months, Clark was dragged through the mud after signing her $28 million Nike deal, with critics accusing her of jumping the line and benefiting from so-called white privilege to get a signature shoe before Wilson. The backlash was brutal. Clark was harassed online, attacked by media personalities, and thrown into a firestorm of controversy over something completely out of her control. But now, the truth has come out, and it changes everything. Aja Wilson just admitted that she had known about her own Nike shoe deal for 2 years, but was forced to keep it secret due to a non-disclosure agreement, NDA. That means all the outrage, all the accusations, and all the hate Clark received were based on a false narrative that never should have existed in the first place. Now Clark's supporters are calling out Wilson, accusing her of staying silent while Clark took the heat, and even fueling the controversy with cryptic tweets that led to widespread backlash against Clark. So how did this all go down? Why did Wilson's tweets add fuel to the fire? And most importantly, was this a calculated move, or was Wilson just caught in the middle of a media storm she didn't expect? Let's break it all down. When Nike announced its massive endorsement deal with Caitlin Clark, the reaction was immediate and divisive. On one hand, fans were excited to see a young WNBA rookie get the kind of major sponsorship deal that women's basketball had been lacking for years. But on the other hand, the deal sparked outrage, with people claiming that Clark had received special treatment and that Aja Wilson, a two-time MVP and WNBA champion, had been overlooked and disrespected. This controversy didn't come out of nowhere. It was fueled by Wilson and her former teammate Sydney Colson, who both made cryptic tweets right after Clark's deal was announced. These tweets set social media on fire, with fans rushing to defend Wilson and attacking Clark, claiming that her success was just another example of racial bias in endorsements. Clark was harassed for weeks, with some critics saying she didn't deserve the deal, despite the fact that she was breaking viewership records and bringing more attention to the WNBA than anyone before her. But now, we know that Wilson had a Nike deal lined up the entire time. She knew that she wasn't actually being ignored or disrespected, she just couldn't talk about it yet because of her NDA. This completely changes the narrative, and fans are furious that Clark had to endure months of attacks over a situation that wasn't even real. Now that we know Wilson had her own shoe deal in place for 2 years, the biggest question fans are asking is, why didn't she say anything to stop the hate against Clark? For months, Clark was painted as the villain in a controversy that never should have existed. She was accused of stealing opportunities from black athletes, she was used as a scapegoat for everything wrong with endorsement deals in women's sports, and she was subjected to relentless online attacks. And yet, Wilson stayed silent. She never stepped in to clarify that she was also getting her own shoe deal. She never pushed back against the false narrative that Clark's success had come at her expense. Instead, she let the controversy play out, despite knowing that it was built on a lie. To make things worse, her cryptic tweet made it seem like she was frustrated with Nike, which only added fuel to the fire. Whether it was intentional or not, her silence allowed the hate to spread, and now fans are calling her out for not stepping in sooner. Some are even questioning whether Wilson purposely played into the narrative to gain sympathy and apply pressure on Nike to make her deal even bigger. Whether that's true or not, the fact remains. Clark took the fall for a controversy that never should have happened, and now that Wilson has revealed the truth, fans are wondering why she waited so long to set the record straight. Clark's supporters are livid, and they're not letting this go. For months they watched their favorite player get harassed, insulted, and disrespected over a shoe deal that had nothing to do with racial favoritism. They saw Clark take the high road, staying completely silent, while people accused her of stealing the spotlight from black athletes. And now, they want answers. Fans are calling out Wilson, demanding to know why she let this false controversy go on for so long. This controversy isn't just about endorsement deals, it's about how misinformation spreads and how certain athletes get unfairly targeted. Clark never asked to be put in the middle of this drama. She signed a well-earned deal with Nike based on her historic impact on the game, and yet she was vilified for it. Wilson, meanwhile, held onto a secret that could have cleared Clark's name instantly, but instead let the controversy grow. Whether she intended to or not, she allowed Clark to take the fall while she stayed silent, and now fans are demanding accountability. Some are even questioning whether Wilson should publicly acknowledge the damage done to Clark and clarify that she was never actually ignored or disrespected by Nike. After all, Clark's reputation took a hit because of this, and it's only fair that the truth gets just as much attention as the false outrage did. One thing is clear. This fake controversy should never have happened, and Caitlin Clark's fans are making sure it won't be forgotten anytime soon. Aja Wilson has long been one of the most respected players in the WNBA. As a two-time MVP, WNBA champion, and the face of the Las Vegas Aces, she has built a reputation as a fierce competitor and a leader in women's basketball. But now, this controversy is putting a dent in that image. Fans who once respected and defended Wilson are now questioning her actions, or rather, her inaction. She knew for 2 years that she had her own Nike deal in place. She knew that Caitlin Clark was being unfairly attacked after Nike announced Clark's contract. And yet, she said nothing. While some of her loyal supporters are standing by her, others feel betrayed. Many believe that Wilson should have been more transparent, or at least clarified that she was also getting her own signature shoe. Instead, she allowed the false narrative that Nike had overlooked her to spread unchecked, and that has damaged her credibility. Wilson may not have intended for things to spiral out of control, but the fact remains, her silence made it worse. And now, with the truth out in the open, she has to deal with the consequences. Will this controversy affect her endorsements? Probably not, but will it change how fans perceive her? Absolutely. If she wants to repair her reputation, she may need to address this directly, whether that's through an interview, a statement, or even just acknowledging the unnecessary backlash Clark had to face. Because right now, the damage is already done. Nike isn't innocent in all of this. If anything, they created this mess with how they handled their endorsement deals. Let's break it down. Nike had both Clark and Wilson signed to contracts, but for some reason, they announced Clark's deal first without mentioning that Wilson already had a shoe in the works. This made it look like they were prioritizing Clark over Wilson, when in reality Wilson's deal had been in place for 2 years. This lack of transparency fed into the false narrative that Clark was being pushed ahead of Wilson because of race, favoritism, or corporate bias. And instead of getting ahead of the controversy, Nike let it spiral out of control. Now, they are facing criticism from both sides. Clark's supporters are furious that she was attacked over nothing, while Wilson's fans feel like she wasn't given her due respect. This whole ordeal exposes a bigger problem in WNBA marketing. Nike is supposed to be a leader in promoting women's basketball, but if they can't even manage their top athletes' endorsements without causing division, how can they be trusted to grow the game the right way? This was a PR disaster that could have been easily avoided, and now Nike has to deal with the fallout. The WNBA has been growing at an incredible rate, thanks in large part to stars like Caitlin Clark and Aja Wilson, but if this controversy proves anything, it's that the league's marketing needs to evolve fast. Right now, women's basketball has an opportunity like never before. Clark's arrival has brought millions of new fans, and Wilson's dominance has helped solidify the WNBA as a league with elite talent and must-watch competition. But the way this Nike controversy unfolded proves that women's basketball still isn't being marketed correctly. Instead of highlighting the rivalries, the matchups, and the greatness of these athletes, the focus keeps getting dragged into social debates and unnecessary controversy. Instead of building up stars like Clark and Wilson together, the conversation turns into who's getting more attention, who's being overlooked, and who's being treated unfairly. This needs to change. Clark and Wilson are two of the biggest stars in WNBA history. Instead of being pit against each other for marketing purposes, they should be promoted as the Magic versus Bird of the WNBA, two superstars with different styles, different backgrounds, and one amazing rivalry that fans should be excited to watch. If the WNBA and Nike are serious about growing the league, they need to stop creating division and start selling the competition. They need to stop framing endorsements as a battle for respect and start focusing on what actually makes people watch sports: intensity, rivalries, and elite performances on the court. This controversy should never have happened, but maybe it can serve as a wake-up call for how the WNBA markets its stars moving forward, because if they keep creating unnecessary drama instead of promoting the actual game, they risk turning off the very fans they are trying to attract. This situation isn't just a social media controversy. It has real implications for the 2025 WNBA season. Caitlin Clark and Aja Wilson are already two of the biggest names in women's basketball, but now their names are linked in an entirely new way. This Nike drama has added fuel to a rivalry that could define the future of the league. Clark and Wilson are already on a collision course for must-watch matchups this season. The Fever and Aces will face off multiple times, and now those games aren't just about rookie versus MVP. They're about unfinished business, public perception, and who deserves to be the face of the WNBA. For Clark, this is yet another mental challenge she has to overcome. She has spent the past year being attacked, doubted, and criticized for simply doing what any elite athlete would do, signing a major deal with Nike based on her success and influence. Now she has to step on the court knowing that a large portion of fans will be watching her every move, waiting for her to fail just to justify their criticisms. That's a lot of pressure for a rookie, but if there's anything Clark has proven, it's that she thrives under pressure. For Wilson, this controversy may bring more scrutiny than she expected. She has been the best player in the WNBA for the past few years, but now there are questions about how she handled this situation. Some fans feel like she let Clark take unnecessary heat, and that could impact how she's perceived moving forward. If Wilson wants to truly move past this, she may have to publicly acknowledge the controversy and set the record straight, something she hasn't done yet. Beyond the individual players, this controversy could affect how the WNBA is marketed this season. Does the league lean into this rivalry, knowing that controversy fuels interest? Do they try to cool things down, hoping to avoid more unnecessary drama? Either way, the damage is done. This situation has changed the narrative heading into the season, whether the WNBA likes it or not. Now that the truth is out, the biggest question is, will Clark and Wilson actually talk about it? So far, both players have been mostly silent on the issue. Clark has been laser-focused on basketball, avoiding the drama and sticking to her usual approach of letting her game do the talking. Wilson, on the other hand, has made a few vague statements but hasn't fully addressed the backlash or taken responsibility for how things played out. At some point, they're going to be asked about this. Whether it's in a press conference, a sit-down interview, or a post-game media session, reporters will want to know. Clark, knowing her personality, will likely downplay the controversy, saying she's focused on basketball and doesn't pay attention to the noise. Wilson, on the other hand, may try to smooth things over, but if she avoids taking responsibility, the backlash could continue. If Wilson were to come out and directly say that Clark's deal had nothing to do with race or favoritism, it could help clear the air and move things forward. But if she continues to dance around the issue, this controversy could follow both players all season long. One way or another, this will have to be addressed. The longer it lingers, the more it becomes a distraction for both players, their teams, and the league as a whole. This entire controversy proves how dangerous social media can be in shaping narratives, especially in women's sports. One cryptic tweet from Wilson was enough to create a firestorm that lasted for months, leading to real consequences for Clark and the way she was perceived. Social media plays a huge role in how WNBA players are viewed because the league is still growing and heavily relies on fan engagement online. But instead of bringing people together to celebrate the rise of women's basketball, this situation created unnecessary division. The biggest issue here is that misinformation spreads faster than the truth. When Wilson tweeted her vague comment about delayed but not denied, people immediately assumed Nike had ignored her in favor of Clark. That led to media narratives, think pieces, and fan outrage, all of which could have been avoided if Wilson or Nike had spoken up sooner. This isn't just about Clark and Wilson, it's about how the WNBA can prevent similar situations in the future. If star players are going to air their frustrations publicly, they need to be mindful of how their words will be interpreted. A single tweet can create a massive ripple effect, and in this case, it led to months of unnecessary division between fans, players, and even the media. The WNBA is at a stage where it needs unity and excitement to grow, not constant controversy that distracts from the actual games. If players aren't careful with how they engage online, it can damage the league's momentum instead of helping it. Regardless of how this controversy plays out, one thing is clear. Clark vs. Wilson is officially the biggest rivalry in the WNBA. Before this drama, the storyline was already there. The young superstar entering the league versus the reigning MVP who isn't ready to give up her crown. But now, this rivalry has been given extra intensity whether they wanted it or not. When the Indiana Fever and Las Vegas Aces face off, the stakes will be higher than ever. Clark will want to prove she belongs and that she's more than just an endorsement deal. Wilson will want to shut down any criticism and remind everyone why she's the best in the league. And the fans? They're going to be watching like never before. This isn't just another game anymore. It's a battle between two players who represent different eras, different fan bases, and now, different sides of a controversy that has divided the WNBA community. The WNBA needs to embrace this rivalry the right way. Instead of letting it be about off-the-court drama, they should lean into the competition and show why these two players are must-watch television. Whether Clark and Wilson like it or not, this situation has cemented their rivalry for years to come.